Hello and welcome everyone to this special Lunch and Learn session with Ekalof on magnifying the role of social value in ESG. Some housekeeping rules for today. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box and we will pick the questions during the Q&A section. We will be using Mentimeter to capture your views and insights, so please contribute by joining the Menti. And lastly, we will be sharing these slides and Menti polls after the session. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's session. We will be also recording this session, so you can actually listen to this recording after the session as well. One request, please share your feedback on the session, what you liked about this session, what you want us to add in next sessions. Any ideas and recommendations are welcome. My colleague Rosie will share the link in the chat box at the end of the session as well. So today's agenda is quite simple: to simplify and demystify ESG, look at social value from an ESG lens and how it can work together. Penny Anderson from Ekalof is our star guest today, and she will help us in this journey to demystify ESG and social value. So please do put your questions, reflection, or any insights in the Q&A box, and we will respond to that. First thing first, many of you know me through our school social value group, but taking this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Vishali Bed. I'm a senior consultant with Action Sustainability, who is the delivery backbone of Supply Chain Sustainability School. I'm a procurement professional, and the areas which I work with school and Action is social value and sustainable procurement. So it's time to get started. So what you see on your screen right now is just an impression to give you that how organizations are moving in this ESG journey. And this is actually the download from today. And I will just point certain points over here. If you can see, there are currently in the market around 3,000 plus jobs within UK in the ESG area. And one interesting point, this is one of the openings from Amy, who is also our partners in the school network. And they have posted a job around social value senior manager. And what you will see that they have also included within the role and job description, the person should know the ESG frameworks. So apart from knowing the social value frameworks of TOMS and HACC, they should also know or should have the knowledge of ESG frameworks. This is just to give you a kind of a glimpse, the importance of ESG in the market. For now, I will leave you with this thought and let's move further. So let's start with Menti. I will request everyone to please log in on menti.com. And when you are prompted on your screen, please put the code 84363781. You can also see this code on your screen, and my colleague Rosie might have also posted on the chat box as well. So once you are on Menti, we will start a kind of a mini round of interaction. And hopefully you can see my screen as well. And that's great. I already see some results coming in for the first question. That what are the terms your organization uses to define positive impact? So there are a lot of words which we use within our organization to define what is positive impact, what is going beyond actually the profit margins. So is it something associated with social value, sustainability, ESG, SDG? Many organizations use the word CSR, which is around corporate social responsibility. What is the term which you associate the most within your organization? And as you can see on my screen, social value, social impact is taking like the first place within this matrix. The second place is for sustainability. And that's a great phenomena to see that the third spot is for ESG. That means ESG has already captured the marketplace. And we are listening a lot about how ESG is making an impact over here. Perfect. So let's move on to the second question, that what do you understand by ESG? Of course, we all understand the full form of ESG is around environmental, social, and governance. But what we really want to understand, how is ESG impacting you? How is it impacting your supply chain? What do you really understand by ESG? If we can just have some of your insights, some of your knowledge, that would be interesting. It's around sustainability, profit with purpose, value creation, community impact, social value protection, governance, risk-based approach. Really, ESG speaks about the risk-based approach. Environmental, measurement and accounting, long-term impact. Great. I will let this cloud move on with some great insights over here. But what really stands out is sustainability, governance, community, risk-based approach, shareholders, and social value to add to the picture. Brilliant. And with this, we will just move on the next question for today, which is, what are the first three words that come to your mind when you think of social value? Of course, we are talking about ESG, but how do you associate social value with? What really comes to your mind when you think that, yeah, social value for me is about community, for the positive impact, what we are creating? So it's about the community, the legacy, what we are creating with our work. It's about the positive impact, equality, for customer engagement, delivering impact, knowing your client requirements, partnership, inclusion. So actually everything around the positivity. That is the great thing about social value, because whatever we are doing within the space of social value, it is all about the people. It's all about how we can create that positive impact on people's lives. Moving on to the next question. Now let's look at social value and ESG together. Do you think social value is part of your ESG strategy? One thing, there is no right answer, no wrong answer over here. It's all about what you think. Does social value fits within your ESG strategy? Do you think they are like the part of the same puzzle? What's your take on this? Till now, of course, majority of the participants say yes, social value is part of the ESG strategy. But of course, it's a good thing to have certain no's. And that's one of the reasons we are here today, to actually demystify and see if really social value actually fits within this ESG puzzle. Next question is, what do you think? If now you think that social value is part of your ESG strategy, how prepared you think your supply chain or procurement is there for the upcoming ESG regulations? Of course, we are talking from a UK context, but a lot of European countries, they are coming with ESG regulations. So what's your take on this? There are four options. We are completely unprepared. We don't know what's happening. It doesn't matter to us because my investors are not interested in the ESG, or we are aware that there are certain policies, regulation changes, but that's pretty much it. Or we are unprepared that, okay, nothing is happening over here. I think majority of our participants are aware that there is a requirement of ESG. There are policies coming in, kicking in, there are standards requirement, but they are still within that zone of understanding what's happening. But what is missing is, of course, the delivery part. So the last question for today, can you please rank the top 3 reasons as to why your organization is interested in social value? Now let's talk about social value. Is it just the legislation requirement that your organization is interested in looking at social value? Or is it like investors have started asking those questions, that what's happening from an ESG perspective? Or is it around actually attracting or retaining your employees? And there are other options as well. Of course, people see social value as a factor to drive innovation as well. And of course, risk management is part and parcel of our business strategies. So what I see on my screen is, of course, the first response is to improve relationships with communities we work in, the local communities. Second is around the client requirements. The clients have started asking about how you can deliver social value within your contracts, how you can deliver social value within your procurement processes, and the competitive edge, because sustainability and social value has become more like how we can actually bring a competitive advantage to our clients and to our customer base. Brilliant. Thank you so much for your response. And with this, we will again go back to our presentation. Allow me a moment, please. I think everyone should be able to see my screen again. Before we move forward, it's important to understand what we mean by social value and ESG. Simply put, Public Services Act 2012, which is dearly known as Social Value Act, it just states that consider your environmental, your social and economic well-being factors within your buying process. And what CFA Institute state is that, of course, ESG is all about environmental, social, and governance. But as an investor, you need to look at these non-financial factors when you are investing in any project or in any organization. So what we really need to look within these definitions are that what's the similarity? Both social value and ESG are asking for these non-financial factors. That is everything what we do, it should be around the people. And the difference is that ESG is linked to investment decision and is very risk oriented in its approach, whereas social value is about that proactiveness, that how you can weave it very early in your procurement stage, what we call it as pre-procurement stage. So even I believe that social value is one of that initial activities which you need to consider if you are taking an ESG journey within your organization. Moving on to scope of ESG, now let's look that we are only talking about the S part of ESG, which is around the social part. And what it considers is social from two angles: internal, that is your staff, your employees, and external, which is your local community. So if you as your organization really would like to achieve ESG goals, you need to work around your internal stakeholders, which is around your employees and your staff. And you also need to work around your local communities, what we actually define within the social value context as well. So to achieve this S within ESG, you need to work from both the angles. And just if you have attended our PPN sessions and workshops, we discuss quite in length about these legislative contexts, but just to give a couple of points here, when the Social Value Act came into force in Jan 2013, for the first time, public bodies were required to consider. So the word over here is consider, that how the services they commissioned and procure might improve not only the economic, but also the social and environmental well-being of the areas where you are working. While all the intentions of Public Services Act has that how it can bring the good qualities within a project, how it can deliver that good social services within the project. But in reality, this became more like a tick box activity. But what really changed with PPN 0620, that it is now not only a mandate for central government contracts and likes, but one of the further intention of PPN 06 is to open up public procurement to wider group of suppliers, be it from small organizations, small suppliers, SMEs, VCSEs. It just want to create a level playing field for everyone. And with this, I would now, it's time for me actually to hand over to Penny, who is our special guest today and who will help us to demystify the S in ESG further. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Penny Anderson. She is Head of Social Impact with Ecolov. And if I remember correctly, Penny has around 15 years of work experience, and she has worked with contractors, BAM Construct, engineering consultancy companies, and currently she's working with a MMC consultancy company called Ecolov. And I think she has always focused on how she can add value to communities and organization, not only at the local level, but also at national and international level. So Penny, stage is all yours. And yeah, we are here to look forward to your views now.
Thank you very much, Vaishali. That was really interesting. It was the questions were it was great to kind of see those questions and understand, see sort of people's responses to those as well. So that should feed quite well into what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so thank you for the introduction and explanation as to who I am. So I'll get straight into the presentation. So I wanted to kind of talk through a few bits and pieces really linked to ESG and social value. So we've already kind of looked at one of the questions about, you know, the different words associated with this whole area. So I was going to sort of cover that a little bit, talk about what clients are referring to, and help to understand how sort of all of the metrics that we talk about can kind of be mapped together and how they all link together. A little bit about benefits and risks. Some ideas as to how you can either get started or move on from where you are already and help to develop that, you know, strategy. And then just a little bit about capturing and reporting. So as we've already said, there's all kinds of words associated and phrases. So there's the social value, there's ESG, there's sustainable development goals, themes, outcomes and measures, innovation. You know, there's just this whole range of words associated, and sometimes it can make things really complicated. And actually, I think underneath it all, it's difficult to achieve social value. It does require a lot of effort, but it's not especially complicated. And sometimes we kind of get hung up on all of these different things that people are talking about out there. So yeah, hopefully this will help to sort of take away some of that bamboozlement, if that's a word. So I guess I kind of started, when I was asked to do this, I started to think about when I started in this field. It was called CSR. You know, everybody referred to, excuse me, everything that I was doing, that other people in the field were doing was CSR. And it was very much about kind of doing less bad, I think, probably in those early days. I think there was, you know, that's a generalization. There were pockets of really good practice, but I think that's essentially where things started to sort of, you know, happen. And you know, driven by clients who were, you know, let's say, for example, building, I think I first came across it through education, where, you know, while we were building a school, you know, what else can we do for the parents, the teachers, the students to really make a difference? So that's kind of how it began for me, and that sort of corporate social responsibility. It's a term that we hear probably less and less in the UK, but I think it's still very widely used in other countries. I know when I was at BAM International, when they were working in all different countries, CSR was very much a big part of their projects that they were working on. Sometimes it can be seen as kind of greenwashing or good washing, rather than, you know, something positive. But essentially, it's about understanding who you are as an organisation and understanding how you can be socially accountable to your stakeholders and shareholders. ESG, as Vaishali's kind of introduced really nicely, it's risk-based. It's about mitigating risks. It's about sort of having values that are not just financial, but are also recognising that there's value in other things as well. And often the S has been neglected, which I guess is why now there's such a big spotlight on it, because it's the hardest one in a lot of ways. So this is good to kind of really focus in on the S. Sustainable development goals, which you're probably all really familiar with, have been around for quite a few years now, and they're mainly used at country level, although a lot of companies do sort of align their external reporting processes to SDGs to help kind of express the impact they're having on particular SDGs. And then finally, social value. Again, as Vaishali's introduced through the Social Value Act, which came in 2012, which was actually a Conservative Labour coalition project, which I think is really interesting because, so often there's things are so divisive in government, but I think this was something that was, really kind of both the main parties recognised was something that they really wanted to introduce, and it's obviously evolved a lot since 2012. And I think one thing I really like about talking about social value and social impact as well is that it gives people the opportunity to kind of tell their story around the value that they're creating for society. And I guess as well, it's worth recognising there's various layers of social value. So, thinking about a hospital or any building really or project, there's inherent social value through delivering that project. So what would have happened anyway if anybody had built it or designed it and made that product. And then there's embedded social value. So they're making the changes on a contract. So that could be through training, apprenticeships, employment, etc. And then there's added social value. So working with local communities to sort of really make a difference, using the work that you're doing as an opportunity to do that. I think it's really important to recognise there are those different layers and there's opportunities to do things at different stages and in different ways. Okay, so thinking about what our clients are talking about. So the main ones that you will all be familiar with are Themes, Outcomes and Measures, or TOMS, PPN 06 and Section 106. I'm not going to talk too much about Section 106, but really that's about where in planning through a contract we're asked to do something for the local community. It's often around training. It can sometimes be around a financial contribution. It could be around employment, etc. And that's something that's written into the contract that has to be delivered. But much more it's becoming more and more common to see TOMS, and as PPN 06 is starting to get embedded, to see those two in contracts. So I'll talk mainly about those two. So TOMS can be summarised in five themes: so jobs, growth, environment, social and innovation. Excuse me. So I've tried to summarise the TOMS, and any of you who are kind of familiar with them will know that they're really extensive, but I've tried to summarise it sort of into something quite succinct. So there's the theme, which is the jobs, growth, etc. There's the outcomes, and then there are measures. So the outcomes around jobs, for example, are getting people into employment, improving skills, creating opportunities or providing opportunities for people who might be from a disadvantaged background, improving employability of young people, and how that can be achieved is through employing local people in the project, providing training opportunities. So actually looking for, well, what could we do differently that provides training opportunities for somebody who maybe previously wouldn't have had access to that training, and how can we kind of talk to young people about how they can get into work, how they can get work experience, or how they can get access to careers advice, etc. So it's kind of it's utilising the opportunities you have in quite specific ways to improve employability for local people. With growth, it's around opportunities for small organisations and voluntary organisations, social enterprises, etc. Health and wellbeing, helping to reduce inequalities, cyber risks, cybersecurity risks are in there as well. Embedding social value in the supply chain, ethical procurement, and helping organisations to come out of COVID as well. So what can we do in that area? So running wellbeing programmes, helping to kind of embed equality, diversity and inclusion training in your businesses and in your supply chains, ensuring that we comply to gender pay gap reporting and taking action to reduce that pay gap, ensuring we have measures in place to prevent modern slavery and to provide training so people can identify risks, etc., etc. So it's, you know, all about kind of taking those actions that are going to make a difference to the overall outcomes. So with environment, so we've got carbon emissions, air pollution being reduced, safeguarding the natural environment, thinking about resource efficiency, sustainable procurement, and responding to the COVID-19 environmental. So what can we do? So things like reducing car miles, having programs in place to achieve net zero, or potentially offsetting if that isn't possible, or if we've tried everything to get to that point, adopting circular economy solutions, with diverting waste from landfill, eliminating single-use plastics, etc. And then on social, so the outcomes being that crime is reduced and we create healthier communities, vulnerable people are helped to live more independently, and we do more work with the community. So that's around implementing initiatives or community engagement programs to support those groups of people. And then finally, the last one is around innovation, and that's around doing something innovative that isn't included in the categories above. So in terms of thinking about TOMS, what can you do? So you can familiarise yourself with the TOMS resources, and there's quite a lot out there through the local government association and other places you'll find resources as well. And look internally, what do you do already which ties into the themes that are outlined in TOMS? And have a think about what kind of measures that you know, what you can actually do to support the different measures in place already. And I think the big one, and I will repeat this a lot, and this is kind of just from learning from experience, it's about resourcing for success. So if you have to implement TOMS on a project or on a wider basis, how are you going to do that? Who's going to deliver that? Who's going to manage it and support it? Is it somebody that exists already? Is that realistic? Or do you need to have somebody additional providing that support? And then looking at PPN 06, so it's as Vaishali introduced at the beginning, it's about that mandatory 10% weighting of social value in government contracts. It's about more than most economically advantageous, it's about value, and there are some standardised questions. So on this one, they've got 5 themes, so COVID recovery, tackling economic inequality, fighting climate change, equal opportunities, and well-being. So again, I've just tried to summarise this really briefly. So with each of the themes, there's a policy outcome, which you see on that second column, and then there's a selection of model award criteria, and that's kind of helping you to sort of understand what it is that they're trying to achieve and what areas they want you to focus on. So my recommendation there would be to understand, have a look at those model award criteria and start to think, well, what could we do in that area? What sort of targets could we set ourselves to actually make a difference in that area? And start to think about, well, what are we doing already? You know, what case studies can we provide that help to tell that story around those different areas? So some of the model award criteria, for example, are with COVID recovery, supporting people to come out, you know, to recover from COVID in their local communities. So that might be economically, or it might be through getting back into society. Through tackling economic inequality, it might be around creating opportunities for small organisations, for entrepreneurial organisations. Fighting climate change is a lot around net zero and additional environmental benefits as well. Equal opportunities is around demonstrated action to increase representation of disabled people and helping to tackle inequality in the workforce. So, you know, what can you do to do that? And wellbeing is around demonstrated action to support health and wellbeing in the workforce, but also co-designing with communities. So what can you do with communities working together to really make a difference in local communities? And what can you do? So again, it's about familiarising yourself with the government documents that are available, understanding what you do already, what can you commit to against each MAC, and resource for success. So in reality, if you have to deliver on a contract, some of the model award criteria, who have you got in place that can do that? Are they enough, or do you need some additional resource? So just having a think about the kind of some of the things that we've talked about and some that we haven't talked about, I just thought this table might be quite useful to sort of help people to see that you know, there's the themes on the left. You've got ESG, so environmental, social, and governance, and I've added economic in there as well as in brackets to sort of demonstrate where that part of the pie sort of sits. And I just think it's quite nice to be able to see that actually all of the things, all the different language that's used, all kind of maps mostly quite neatly. There's a few outliers, but mostly it maps quite neatly against that ESG. And if you as an organisation have some sort of principles, some foundations, and you can map them into here as well, that helps you to see how the language you use, how it ties into the external language being used as well. So just a few benefits and risks. So the benefits for your business are manifold, really, particularly around work winning. And around getting into sort of new work opportunities. If you can talk the language of social value and demonstrate that you're delivering on it, then you know the new work opportunities will be available. It'll help to build your reputation. It really helps with employee retention. More and more employees now. We talked for a long time about young people, graduates asking for purpose-led businesses, but I think that's much broader than just that younger age group now. I think that's across the board. People are looking for businesses that reflect their values. It will help to attract new talent, so it's the same kind of thing, and it will develop a more diverse workforce, which you know, more diverse workforces have proven to be really successful and more financially successful. In terms of benefits for your employees, it's around job satisfaction. Their own well-being, they can learn new skills and have new opportunities to get involved in different types and different ways of working. And again, it aligns to their personal values. And integrating with your communities is better for you as a business and for those communities. It improves social mobility, provides greater opportunities for employment. It can help to improve local facilities if you get involved in community projects. It can have better relationships with local businesses and enhance the natural environment locally. And in terms of risks of not delivering on social value, so it can, reputational damage, which can be really difficult to overcome. It can, it is competitive. Everybody's expected now to sort of be able to demonstrate their social value. So it can feel like if you don't do this, you can be falling behind your competitors. It can be risky you need to be able to give clients belief in what you can deliver, so you need to be able to walk the walk. You can lose out on opportunities, work opportunities. It can be difficult to attract people and to keep people. So just a few thoughts around steps to take to get started. So I can't emphasize this enough, and I repeat this to everybody I've worked with, it's about starting as early as you possibly can. Very often it's thinking about social value is left too late. And when it's left too late, it's really, really difficult to sort of put a plan in place, because really a lot of legwork needs to be done up front, and starting early allows you to understand what the opportunities are, what the need is, to start to build some relationships with stakeholders. So it's really, really crucial to get started as early as possible. Engage with your clients, so understand what the clients are looking for. Have a look, have they got a policy, a social value policy or something like that? What language do they use? What are their purposes? What is it they want to achieve? So understand that and have a think about how you can tie in with that. Resource for success. So have a think about, who in the business can deliver this. And it shouldn't just be down to the social value person. It should be something that's shared across a wider group of people. Social value covers such a broad area across your business that it needs to be more than just one person looking after it. And also, it can't be an add-on for somebody because it can be quite time consuming to manage. So it needs to be really considered, who can look after this properly and give it the attention it deserves. Understand local need in the context of what it is that you're talking about, whether it's a project or a framework or something else. And that's really getting to understand what are the challenges in your local community. So that can be, there's plenty of information available online that you can find out what particular challenges are being faced, or you can talk to local charities and community groups to sort of find out what it is that they need. And often if you ask those questions, you'll get some really interesting information back from them, which will help to help you to sort of then design what it is that you can deliver that will really benefit them. And then develop your strategy from there with all of that information you've got in the background. And then next one is around measuring and monitoring. So I think this can be in social value world, measuring and monitoring can be really complicated. And if you as a business need to have, an overall strategy and use a particular tool, then that's great. But if not, then just keep it as simple as possible and just capture what it is that you're doing. And that's a really good start point, is just finding a simple way to log any social value activities that you're working on. And then finally, collaborate to deliver. I think the more we can do with each other, within the industry, with stakeholders, with clients, with other businesses in the local area, the more chance we have of success. So that's a really important one. Just looking at the time, okay. So in terms of developing a strategy from there, so think about how you are, where you are on your journey around social value, what's your maturity level, where do you want to be in the future, what is it that you'd really like to achieve as a business, understand what your capability is that you have existing already and what the capacity is to do more or to enhance what you're already doing. Design an implementation plan, start to think about that measurement in the long term. What does that measurement need to look like? What is it you want to measure? Understand, how you can get the most out of this and how you can work with your stakeholders to do more. And then, really start to sort of think ahead and think longer term about the real difference you want to make. So then just a few things about measuring and reporting. So at the beginning, think about what is it you want to measure. What is it that's important to your business and to your clients and communities? So, do that research up front and start to set some targets based on that, define what you want to achieve. Really importantly as well, understand what you do already. Talking to a lot of businesses who are kind of a bit confused about where to start with social value. Once they actually start looking internally and looking at what they're doing already, they can they then start to realise they've got a really strong base to work from. And if you've got something that's happened organically in your business and you're doing it already, then chances are, that can be built upon, and that's a really strong base to work on. And talk to your employees about what they're doing already, either at work or maybe outside work, because they might have some really strong links with community organisations that you as a business could support. And celebrate success. If you're doing something well, write about it and share it with employees and outside, in the outside world as well. as I've mentioned before as well, keep a social value log and keep it simple to begin with. It doesn't need to be complicated. Just keep a really simple track of what you're doing, who you're working with, what impact that's having, and you know, so you can, and have it in a way that's accessible for other people to be able to you know, to record what they're doing too. So like a really simple way of doing it might be using Microsoft Forms. For example, you know, you have a little simple questionnaire that anybody who does a social value activity, they just fill it in, and then you've got a log of the activities that online. Something like that could be a really nice starting point. And then understand how you can engage with your suppliers. What are they doing already? And how can you talk, you know, work with them to understand how you can work together. So just to sort of sum up some of my thoughts really. So capturing what you do already, so your social value activities that you're already working on, will go a long way to help you reach your ESG goals. The two really go hand in hand, and one will definitely support the other. Social environmental actions are intrinsically linked, so try not to think of them as two separate entities, although in a lot of ways they are, but there's so much that we do that sort of environmental aims of air pollution being the real primary one, that actually, you know, why is it we want the air to be less polluted? A lot of it is around social and health benefits. So you know, it really helps to try and think of those two as intrinsically linked. Celebrate what you're already good at. You know, don't let it go to waste, and tell everybody about it, particularly internally, so people can understand what it is you want people to do more of. Talk to your client about what's important to them, help to understand what their language is. And quantifying what you're doing is really important. So, you know, how many people you've supported, how many weeks or hours of support you've given, how much money you've donated, things like that. But try and keep it simple to begin with. And don't forget the power of storytelling. People won't ever remember the numbers you tell them, but they'll always remember the story about the people who you've supported. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Penny. There are some powerful messages over here. I think there are a lot of points to take within this last 30 minutes what we have spent. But I think my takeaway from your presentation is we need to start as early as possible in this journey. We need to take our supply chain seriously, because sometimes we don't take our supply chain seriously, and we need to understand our local communities, because if we don't understand our local needs and challenges, we cannot, you know, take any actions around those. And I think I don't like this idiom, but it suits well for ESG and social value, that we can actually kill two birds with one stone if we are working around social value and, you know, working around our ESG. And it's time, let's take some questions, because we have a lot of questions coming in our Q&A box. I will start with one controversial kind of a question, that what are your views on ESG ratings being open to corruption due to lack of regulation? As I'm aware, many large oil gas firms have good ESG scores, but this can't be right. Any thoughts over here, Penny, from you?
Yeah, that's an interesting starting question, isn't it? Yeah, and it's something that's been on my mind a lot recently with the news around, you know, windfall taxes and you know, is it what should be done? What's the right way of kind of dealing with companies that are sort of making large profits in the current circumstances? I think it's a difficult one, because it's a natural kind of balance, isn't it? That if your company is doing something which is having a negative impact, then chances are you're going to put a lot of effort into doing something that you know, has a positive impact. So, you know, that positive impact should be celebrated, but you know, it's really important to see the reality of both ends of the spectrum. And yeah, I don't know what the answer is around how do you kind of put that in terms of measurement, but it's a really good point.
Interestingly, Penny, because I think that is absolutely correct what you just said around this. And even what I think what is missing right now is the validation piece, that you are putting certain things on the table, but who is validating those numbers? Do we have, proper evidence around it? So it's more like a holistic picture. Of course, we are taking into consideration certain parameters within ESG, but are we missing that bigger picture, what's happening within certain sectors and certain industries? So yeah, absolutely. One thought is around, is an ESG policy strategy applicable if the company doesn't have external shareholders?
Say that question again, sorry. Is the...
Is uh, is an ESG policy
Okay, got it.
strategy applicable if the company doesn't have any external shareholders? And this is particular to this participant who has put this question because the business he or she works with has only two shareholders who are both directors within the business. So what do you think, is ESG policy mostly for the external shareholders or it's only for the internal shareholders?
I think it's naturally sitting with shareholders, isn't it? But I guess it depends what you want out of it. And if you want to just use it as a framework to check what you're doing already, then why not? Why not use that? But it is, from my understanding, it is mostly shareholders who are interested. And I think that is becoming much more magnified, isn't it, for a lot of companies at the moment.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Penny. This might be interesting, Penny, that I'm a bit cynical about the storytelling being of any value outside our own business. We have some brilliant stories to tell, but they mean nothing to clients who are just using the final proxy value number that pops out after we populate the portals with the numbers in each metric. What can we do as a supply chain to help move some of that approach? So the question is around, of course, they would like to tell those stories, but is there any value associated with those stories?
Whoever it is that's Anne-Marie that's asked this question, yeah, no, I'm totally with you, Anne-Marie. It's really hard, isn't it? Because the real value is in the impact that you've had on people or organisations or communities or the environment, and really that's the story, the right story to be telling. I think if you've got clients who are interested in that number, then I would be asking them why. What is it? What is it you really want to see? I think if you're in a position to challenge them, then have that difficult conversation with them, because in my experience, sometimes clients don't necessarily aren't necessarily as well equipped as they would like to be with the knowledge they need to be able to understand what it is they're asking you to do. And so by having the challenging conversation with them, you might actually get something back from them where you can really start to understand what it is that they want, rather than them coming at you with a number because that's what everybody else is doing, so they jump on the bandwagon and ask for that number. And but yeah, I think having that open conversation is really important.
Perfect. Thanks, Penny. And as it resonates, Penny, really helpful. Thank you. But what do you recommend for logging and monitoring social value activities across multiple offices for a medium-sized business? It can be hard to gather this and not have to identify a single champion for ESG when everyone should own this. Any thoughts, please, or maybe any experience?
Yeah, so just going back to what I was saying before, I think I was previously working for a huge organisation, and trying to capture what was going on around. We were looking particularly at volunteering, but I think you could do it for any aspect of social value. Was really difficult because it was a business that was broken up into lots of different areas, and people worked all over the world. And so that's why we came up, we thought to begin with, let's just have a really simple solution. And that was where we developed a Microsoft form questionnaire that we then, allowed everybody in the business to access. And on it was some simple questions about activities that they'd done, so social value related activities. It gave the name of the they had to give the name of the organisation they'd supported, the people who'd been supporting, how much time they'd given to that, whether there was any donations given, and things like that. So that was very much about volunteering, but I don't see why you couldn't create something that was a bit broader than that, just to get yourself going. And you can keep it open for as long as you want. So you can keep information coming back in, and it's all stored in one place. So yeah, something really simple like that, a platform that people can access, would be a great way to just start gathering that information together.
Brilliant. The next question is, thinking about the data and validation, what is the best way to benchmark and compare different suppliers on social value? So during procurement, the best option is made.
Is this about measuring social value?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a really good question.
We have a brilliant audience, Penny.
Yeah. I wish I had a straightforward answer to that, but I'm still trying to find the right answer myself. I think what's really important is just starting at the beginning and understanding what it is that you as a business mean when you talk about social value, or whatever phrase you use to talk about it. And having those foundations, if you have those foundations in place, then when it comes to measurement, it's much easier for you to understand which measurement model is right for you. I think sometimes it's really hard when you're kind of trying to do everything all at once. It's really difficult to find that right one. But if you've got the principles in place for yourself, it'll be easy to identify the right solution. I don't know if that's any help at all, but.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks so much, Penny. Just being mindful about the time, we will just complete this section and we will pick these questions and we will come back to you with relevant responses after this session. So just a couple of slides here. Of course, you know about the Supply Chain Sustainability School. And just to introduce some social value resources over here, which might be handy for you, that we have relaunched our Introduction to Social Value e-learning module. So if you really want to train your supply chain or you want to know more about social value, you can actually access this e-learning module, which is free of cost for your supply chain. And also we run these sessions almost monthly around different topics within social value. So in July, we will be running a session on supplier diversity to deliver social value with MST UK. In August, we will be running a session with Network Rail, that how you need to work around your social value framework. And in September, we are running a session with Waits Residential around how you need to integrate social value within your supply chain. So some interesting sessions lined up for a couple of next month. So please log in on these sessions on our school and register for these events. So thank you so much, Penny, for your time today. And thank you everyone for participating in our webinar today. We hope you enjoyed the presentation and we will share the slides, the Menti results and the recorded video link soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.